Right then, back with episode 25, I think, at the Midnight Pod. I did one yesterday, then realised that should have been episode 26 because of the way I'm putting these out. But we have Max Witcher, that's how I say your name, right?
Yep, correct.
And I thought that I'd met Max before at a previous flat party like 2 years ago, but it turned out that I hadn't, and it was a friend or something that looked very like you, I swear.
My fans.
Yeah, and then you were recommended to come on by someone else, so I'm not even sure how I know them, someone on Instagram, and they said you had a crazy life story, loads of shit to talk about, which is no pressure now. But yeah, I'm super excited to get into it. I think you've got lots to fucking tell us about and dive into. And sweet. I guess as usual, first question, basically, who the fuck are you, what do you do?
Who the fuck are you?
I guess keep it fairly chronological, and then we can dive into a billion different things.
Sweet, sounds good. I'll try not to ramble because...
Definitely do ramble. It's good.
All right. Okay. Cool. Where should I start? Fuck. So school probably. I wasn't super academic at school. I was really into cycling. Basically just sport in general. Anything to get me out of school, but obviously stay in school to a certain extent. Super into cycling. Started working at my local cycle business when I was like 16. Had lots of fun, obviously really enjoyed the practical side of things, spent more of my time working in the shop than going to school, definitely like missing lots of exams towards the end of school. Obviously loved being practical and earning money. I think I was super money motivated, can't hide from the truth. At a very young age, which we can dive into in a bit more detail further down the line. But started that, had loads of fun, essentially continued to like get more and more involved as I got older. So I stayed on to do A-levels at school, even though I probably shouldn't have, but it felt like the right thing to do, basically go with the crowd. Basically got more involved in the cycle business, started managing it, looking after it while my boss was on holiday. And then one day he turned around and said, do you want to buy it off me? And I was like, wow, obviously I would love to, but I have £0 to my name and I don't come from a wealthy family. My parents definitely didn't have any money to like support on that. And he continued the conversation a little bit. He was basically planning to retire, wanted to move away from the business, equally sort of didn't want to sell it to just a nobody or an anybody. And he eventually offered me the business on a private loan. And because I'd been working there sort of as a manager for a long time, I sort of like knew the business inside out, or what I thought was inside out. Obviously it's very different managing to owning, and then got into that, started going through the motions of buying the business off him on a private loan. I kind of felt like it was a bit of a no-brainer at the time because all my friends were going off to university. I didn't really it definitely wasn't the right option for me because I wasn't that academic, and ended up sort of getting myself into the equivalent debt of going to uni like twice, through a private loan basis. It felt very de-risked to me, like this is my blind optimism at that age. Essentially, didn't really see the downside. It was an established business, it was already making revenue, I was already earning a wage, and I was still living at home at the time. So like there was zero risk. So obviously went for it, made the punt, did that, had fun, built and grew the business, like got into some, I mean the first year was carnage. Definitely like owning a business is very different to managing a business. I was signing checks without any money in the account essentially, and just like hoping that I would make enough money on the weekend for that to go in. And that was like probably my biggest oversight, was that I had this business but I didn't have any money to run the business, and obviously cash flow is really important. So I learned very quickly around like cash, sold like 25% of the stock immediately just to give myself a cash flow buffer. I had like a couple of grand to my name when I started this, so genuinely nothing. Did that, had fun. Basically a couple of fraudulent transactions came through. I had people buy bikes, pay for I thought they paid for the bikes, take the bikes, probably 10 grand's worth at the time, and then like a month later I'd get a letter from HSBC being like, this was a fraudulent transaction, charged back on the card. And obviously that was a lot of money when I was starting off, but did that essentially like it was definitely like sink or swim. I knew that I didn't really have an option but to make it work. At the end of the day, worst case scenario, I had the rest of my life to pay it off if it didn't work. But I really had to like double down and focus on it. So I did that over like 4 or 5 years, paid off it was a 5-year loan, I think. And then I paid it off in 4 years, very like basically as quickly as possible. And then got to that point where I was like, what next? Starting to get itchy feet. My options for growth within the industry were like geographical expansion or online expansion, both of which were obviously interesting, but geographical didn't really feel like the right thing to do. Like rents and rates were increasing, high streets were dying, so forth. And then online expansion was obviously much more exciting to me. I built, basically when I took over the business, it was a local business for local people, and then I started, I created an online shop like immediately, because I was at that age where I was obviously digitally and socially savvy, but in a unique commercial situation. And that was basically good fun. Built the business from selling like locally to then nationally and internationally. And then, my options for growth were like, online didn't really feel like the right thing to do. Like, there was a couple of big players that were like private equity backs, like Wiggle and Chain Reaction, who I would be competing to. And it would have taken like a capital injection, which I didn't really have or was willing to spend. So naturally, I just started consulting like very organically to businesses that I stocked in the shop, very selfishly, to be honest. Like I would have, I stocked a couple of brands that were like less well known, but like great products. So like an Italian road bike brand, for example, was like this pinnacle moment for me, which really cool product, loads of heritage, like a Pinarello of the world, but no one really knew about them. People would come in and be like, oh, it's really cool, I love that, but I Googled them and there's no like presence whatsoever. And I was like, fuck's sake. So I basically started building that presence for them, like selfishly. Then that got more involved, and then they put me on a small retainer to like build their social. Initially, this was when like businesses like didn't have social accounts, and then I started building the social accounts, and then I started managing the social accounts, and then basically realized that there was a huge opportunity here from a commercial perspective. At that point, I then met my now business partner Alex, who had just left his agency. He was working for one of the big agencies in town called Essence. They look after brands like Google, YouTube, FT, stuff like that. So he sort of like took a slightly more traditional route, went to university to business, international studies, marketing, grad scheme, big agency, but clearly had like a very entrepreneurial, personality. And once he had worked at the big agency and seen them grow, he realized that like he was just becoming a number, so left to start his own business. Unbeknown to me at the time, he was going to launch a bike brand. So he was doing like the B2B approach. I was doing the B2C approach, essentially selling to customers through retail and online. He was importing bikes from Taiwan into the UK. Had a flagship shop in Covent Garden, 7 Dials, did really well, like building the brand, but similarly to me, like using social basically as the way forward. The industry is very old school and stagnant, so we had an immediate competitive advantage just by being proactive and digitally savvy. So it was like massive blessing in disguise. We got introduced through a friend of a friend and just connected. I think I reached out to him on LinkedIn and being like, hey, do you want to do a knowledge share session? I really want to know about agencies, and I feel like I could probably add a load of value from the bike industry because you're ultimately selling to people like me, and I got loads of dealer margin contract information that's probably useful. So we did that, had fun. I keep saying had fun. Yeah. This is me covering up the lack of fun in this boring section. But we started consulting together. Basically, I got like major imposter syndrome. The main brand, the Italian road bike brand that I was consulting for, like we kept on asking for more bigger stuff. I had to go up to see their like CEO a couple of times, and I felt very out of my depth. I was very much like a scrappy, self-taught entrepreneur, and I felt like Alex just had the polish and finesse. That's my business partner now. So I got him involved from the consulting perspective, and because he had that agency background, he definitely had a lot of weight to bring. We did some projects together, had loads of fun, dedicated 1 day a week to it. That 1 day a week turned into 5 days a week. We ended up merging the businesses, the cycling businesses. I had a warehouse with a team of relatively capable people. So we merged the businesses, took his brand into the retail business that I had, and then basically just got an MD in to run the cycle businesses. And then we thought we'd double down on the social media consulting. Social media consulting then quickly spiraled into what is now Spin Brands the agency. So fast forward 6 years or so.
Yo, fellas, quick one. First bit of promo for the pod. You may or may not have heard, I released a fucking ecom course a few months ago. Basically spent like 6 months making it because I was in between businesses, as you probably know if you follow my shit. I must say, 12 hours long, it's fucking quality content. I was going to drop it at like 1,500 quid with some bullshit guru-y webinar and all that rubbish, but as you know, it's not my main thing. I'm working on a new brand right now, very, very fucking much in the trenches, which is why I think is actually a better course than everything else out there, because it's built on real experience of my brands in the past and my current one. I think it's super, super valuable. If you're interested in ecom, you're already in ecom and you wanted to get into ecom, 0 to 1, starting a brand from scratch, then definitely worth investing in. Link is in the bio of this video, or podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever the fuck you're listening or watching, and enjoy the rest of the pod.
We've got an social agency which is about 40 people, looks after about 60 different brands across 20 different countries, specialists, not generalists. Based in Waterloo, have lots of fun with that.
Is that actual fun this time?
Yeah, that's actual fun. No, genuinely, like there's like we basically, from the cycling industry, we had this itch for, or like craving for something a little bit more scalable. We realized that cycling industry, as much as we were initially drawn to it through our like passions and hobbies, logistically it's like chaotic. There's so many pieces, there's so many people taking a slice of the pie, and you have to work very hard for like what is a 10% EBIT at the end of the year. And we wanted something more scalable. Little did we know we were going into a people-based business, which isn't the most scalable thing in the world, but for us it felt very scalable, and even now is obviously a lot more exciting. But we really started the social agency because we saw an opportunity in the market. Neither of us had like this burning sensation to become like marketeers. We just happened to be business owners doing it for ourselves successfully, who kind of started advising, and then that advising meant that we didn't want to necessarily be doing the advising ourselves the whole time, so we hired people, and then those people have obviously ended up creating what is now as the agency. And that's kind of my story up until now. So definitely not the most exciting. There's less sex, drugs, rock and roll in there than you were probably hoping for.
No, it's good. Fucking hell, you're good at speaking, to be fair. That was a 12-minute answer to a question. I like that.
Sorry.
No, it's good. So what happened to the bike brand itself then?
Good question. So
how did that merge? Was it both at one point or what?
Yeah, so definitely both at one point, which was very stressful. It was like obviously there was I had like I said, like a capable team. There's about 5 or 6 people running the business for a long time, and the online side was obviously relatively easy to keep an eye on from a distance. I moved up to London about 10 years ago now, sold the cycle business 2 years ago, similarly to how I bought it, on a management buyout essentially. And that was kind of always the plan. So like the MD that we got in at the time to run the business, we were sort of like grooming ready for the purchase one day, but so that was a relatively smooth process when it happened. It was a beginning of pandemic, so like I was very conscious that because he was buying it on a management buyout, I needed to ensure that he was successful and survived to get a full payout, but equally I wanted to maximize a bit of that as well on the way up. I'm not sure if you remember, but at the very beginning of the pandemic there was like the first 2 months or so where everyone went into lockdown, and then we were like enforced to do the exercise, and everyone was cycling basically, and then supply chain fell apart because there were no bikes in the country. So that was tricky, but yeah, in short, the cycling brand is still going and doing very well. They've actually just built a cafe, so they've gone a bit more community centric. I was a bit more like online social community centric, and they're a bit more physical again. But yeah, my first exit, it doesn't really feel like an exit, but it still is a feeling, and it's quite nice to know that I built it and then also departed relatively amicably.
Yeah, nice. I can't believe the fucking pandemic was 2 years ago.
I know,
it's mad when you say that. because so much has happened.
And it's
like,
just a big blur.
For me and a lot of other people, it's like, yeah, Jesus Christ, 2020, 2021. It is a big blur. I feel like I'm getting old when you say that.
Yeah.
How old are you now?
I'm 29. So yeah, started the cycle business when I was 19. Did that for like 4 or 5 years, basically cut my teeth, I suppose, like learning like how to not ruin a business, like learning a lot about cash flow. And then, we're about 6 years old now, the Spin Brands, which is the social agency.
Did you ever think about going to uni?
Yeah, I did.
Because it's pretty niche.
Yeah.
Like, fucking just buy a bike shop.
I know, it's so random, isn't it? I did think about going to uni. I actually felt very like peer pressured into going to university. I remember like quite clearly being a lesson where you were writing your personal statements.
Yeah.
And I was like, Miss, what do I do if I don't want to go to uni? And she was like, just write a personal statement. I was like,
yeah, legit.
Okay, cool, thanks.
It's the system.
Exactly. And so I definitely felt pressure from like family. My family will maybe come onto it because like they're amazing from a support perspective, but they're like the least commercial people I know. So what I did was probably quite scary for them, knowing that they couldn't necessarily support or like get involved too much. But they were always like, just do whatever makes you happy, like, which is like absolute dream. I'm so grateful for that. But a lot of friends, obviously, basically all my friends went to university. Weirdly, I think the timing was quite nice because as they went off to university, I sort of like had this penny drop moment of realization where I was like, fuck, I better sort my life out. And I had 3 years to do that. That was like my time had just started. As soon as they left, I had like a lot of my friends moved out from the area. So I wasn't like as distracted from a social perspective. And I was like, right, I just need to double down and work 7 days a week for the next 3 years. And hopefully I'll be at least on par with them when they leave. And that's genuinely what I felt. And then obviously I feel like, yeah, uni has its benefits, but it's not for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. You get a real life education building a fucking bike business. So were you living at home the whole time?
A chunk of the time, yeah. So not completely, but most of the time, which was strange. I also, for a big part of it, I was sharing a room with my younger brother, who's like my best friend. He was like...
Maybe it was him that came to the party.
Maybe.
I
don't think so.
I swear I look like you.
Yeah. So yeah, that obviously helps from a de-risk perspective because you know, like at the end of the day, you've got like bills to pay, and then paying yourself obviously was lower down the priority list. But I have increasingly learned how important it is to do that because there were stages of the cycling business when it was really tough from a cash flow perspective, and I would like maybe not pay myself or pay myself like really scattered, like in like every 3 months, like a bonus essentially rather than a consistent income. And I realized that created loads of resentment from like the work that I'd put in. I'd feel like it's not worth it, which is just another random perspective.
Yeah, interesting. And then how long was there a crossover from Spin Brands and like were you involved in the bike business up until 2 years ago?
No, yeah.
Did that hand off and then
there was about probably like a year or two at the very beginning where I was doing both essentially, and it was like quite intense. I'd just broken up with my girlfriend at the time, like when I started Spin Brands, and to be honest, it was probably like the best thing that could have ever happened to me in the nicest way possible. It was very amicable, but I just had like full 7 days a week focus on business, which may not have been the healthiest thing, but I definitely feel like it allowed me to get to
how old were you then when you broke up?
When I was like 22, something like that.
Right.
That's when I started Spin. So yeah, about 22. I think she was starting to get excited that I was moving away from the cycle business because it was so like laborious and like all encompassing and probably neglected the relationship. Yeah, less sexy. And then we went on holiday and I was like spent the whole time on the holiday speaking to Alex about like logos for Spin and whatever you do when you first start a business, like and she was like, oh fuck, I've lost him again.
But yeah, it's funny you say that because I went to Barbados last like December 2020, and it was like, sadly, it was the most expensive holiday I've ever been on, but the shittest holiday I've ever been on because I was so stressed about all the shit that was happening with Neon at the time. So I spent the entire fucking time like literally just in the hotel room on my laptop, and she was like, "What the fuck's going on here?"
Yeah, happens. It's not great.
It's like we would have been better off just going to Cornwall for 3 days and me switching off my laptop.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, legit. Tell me about it. With a lot of things for sure.
Yeah.
But starting the agency then, I feel like, you know, social media agencies and stuff now is 10 a penny.
Yeah.
As you know. And I've had a few on this podcast actually, and kind of taking the piss out of the fact it's 10 a penny.
Yeah.
You obviously started that, well, in my mind, before it became this. It's almost like a meme now.
Yeah,
like if you don't
literally.
have an SMMA.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing online? It's like Ty Lopez just pushing it and shit. It's become like.
Yeah. It was when Gary Vee was like the only person shouting about it.
Yeah, exactly. So how was that start? Like, do you think that was there much competition the same way? I mean, obviously not in the same way, but like, obviously it sounds like it was a pretty natural progression rather than we should do this, so let's learn how to do it. It was just you doing stuff that you were kind of involved in anyway, and then it just made sense to
it was so organic. We literally just rolled into it. I think we had a little look at the market and we felt like there was big smokes and mirrors agencies at one end, and then there was like the flaky freelancers at the other end, and like there was this big hole in the middle for like nicely organized, relatively lean, agile, young agency. And we hired a couple of marketing agencies as an experiment for our like bike brands at the time, where we were basically just like learning a lot from their decks and proposals. And then we bought an online course, was it Founder Mag? Do you remember Founder Mag?
I've actually met the founder of Founder,
no, really?
Nathan Chan.
Nathan Chan, yeah.
I'll go tell
that
the story.
voice.
Yeah, because I got really pissed with him. Oh, this is so funny. Sorry. Like, he's like 5'4" or something. Really? And he's like heavily Australian. I think he's like from Adelaide. He's like, hey, Eddie, what's going on? And some shit like that. It's a really bad impression.
Yeah, I literally
met him and that Greta Van Riel. She like had a load of brands.
Yeah.
At some event in Barcelona. These ecom events are always just massive piss-ups.
Yeah.
But that's how you get to know people. Anyway, yeah. And I remember him telling me, because I had a Rolex watch on, which I think I just bought, thinking I was like Mr. Big, and he said, you have to get a Rollie, as in a Rolls Royce, before you get a Rolex. It was some weird thing. He was like, Rollie before Rolex, man. I was like, okay. I just remember it distinctly, but sorry.
No, that's random. But yeah, I literally remember paying like 200 quid for this like Instagram growth course, and that we thought we were the dog's bollocks.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, like genuinely, it was like an easy win for us. I feel like we must be like one of like, there's like us and I think Born Social were going, like they're probably the other independent social agency, but now they're like, they're everywhere, right? But I feel like we definitely got a head start, which was nice. And then we got some like bigger brands under our belt. And then, I feel like the rest is kind of history with relatively clean sailing, but we've obviously got to keep up our game because there's a lot of young, hungry entrepreneurs coming through.
Yeah.
Now.
And was it primarily organic back then, or was it like paid social, or both?
Yeah.
So I imagine now it's probably mostly paid, right?
Yeah, literally. I can remember like the phasing approach, like so specifically, it was like creating social media accounts for people, which obviously is like super easy, but that was like a big thing for brands. They were like, just create one. And then they'd be like, cool, what do we do with it? We're like, okay, cool, we'll post on it for you. So when we like post organic content, and they were like, this is great, we're getting loads of followers and stuff, but like there's no ROI here. And we were like, all right, cool. And then we integrated paid social. So like that was probably like within the first year though. So it was quite like a staggered 3, 6, 12 month process. And then since then, paid social and organic social has been pretty much 50% of our revenue. Like there's been stages where it's like skewed, but it's relatively consistent.
Yeah, and you're 100% focused on social.
Yeah, pure play social.
Because I have a mate that's an agency. He was actually on the pod, and they're like, "Oh, we're trying to do everything," and I was like, "Does that make sense?" Like, was there ever like, do you ever think about doing that? For example, Google, TikTok, YouTube influencers could be fucking everything, couldn't it? But
well, interestingly, like that was like something that I don't know where we got it from, maybe an advisor, or maybe actually just through like the very early stages of basically being a young person dealing with online marketing. You just get thrown everything, and because we were building a business, we were very conscious of like cash and basically being paid to do stuff. So someone would be like, can you build a website? I'd be like, yeah, sure, it's on like Shopify, no worries. And then you do like, say you can do SEO, and it doesn't really work out, whatever. So I think we learned very quickly like to just focus on, be a specialist. But obviously it's quite hard initially when people are offering you money to do stuff and you're trying to grow a business and pay a wage. But even now, like under the social banner, it's massive, isn't it? So like we basically have 5 core areas that we specialize in. It's like organic social, so classic feed population, content curation, creation, community growth. Paid social, where we basically, it's all customer acquisition. We manage about £1 million of media spend a month on behalf of our clients. Creative is probably like the biggest part of our business. Well, the fastest growing part of our business now.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, which is very social first. We have like 10-person design studio, like illustrators, 3D designers. We hired a TikTok influencer last year, YouTuber, stuff like that.
TikTok's mad now.
To be a bit more raw. And then like we do obviously influencer management where we have like a roster as well as like custom stuff. And then we do consultancy, but all under the social banner. So we wouldn't like go too far from that.
Yeah. And how did it look in the early days? I imagine very different to now with an office and 40 employees. Like, what was the first year? Like team-wise, setup-wise, like, and how were you even getting clients? Was there like an outreach strategy? Or was it literally just winging the fuck out of it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because there's obviously courses for all this shit now, like SMMA. Like, but
so
I imagine it was different.
We inherited Alex's storage unit, basically. It was a nice storage unit in Putney. It was like a little studio office, essentially, he used to store his bikes at the time. So when we merged the businesses, I took on his storage and we basically moved into his studio, which was very small, like literally half the size of this room. And just us two at the time with a load of bike boxes around us. And then we worked out of like the hospital club and random like co-work spaces in the city.
Right.
That's where we'd like do our client facing stuff. It felt a bit more legit. And then we ended up hiring Alex's now wife, but at the time girlfriend, who worked for Essence, one of the agency that Alex worked at as well, but in HR. And we were like, obviously I think she was unhappy at the time. She wanted to basically move on from there, and we ended up hiring her as our first account manager. It just made sense. It was like the right solution. We were getting a bit burnt out working, like doing all the biz dev and stuff at the same time as doing all of the work, executing it. So she was our first hire, and then we obviously, without really realizing at the time, HR was like a very crucial component in building a people-based business, but most people would never think of like hiring HR as their first person. And then from an outreach perspective, we were Crowdcube investors, serial Crowdcube investors, where we would basically like message everyone, ask for their pitch deck. It was a time when like basically if you want to get to a decision maker when they're raising is like the time when they're most on their emails and everything. So we would basically sign in, show interest in their investment, and then request like I think you could email them at the time and they'd send you like the numbers, their financials, and then it's like 5 minutes later the founders responded to you with their numbers, and we'd be like, looks really interesting, we'll have a think about it whilst we're on this conversation, or whilst we're on this thread, like this is our agency, if we can collaborate that'd be great. And then like they were just converting so quickly, and like we'd get responses and be like, cool, can you meet tomorrow? And we'd be like, oh fuck, we got to actually go meet someone and sell. But they were obviously taking on funding at the time. A lot of the funding is for like marketing investment, so I think a lot of it is like, people say like timing is so important in life and business, but like there's a lot of like predictable timing, and when businesses raise, it's obviously very predictable timing for us. But I've just been down that process myself. Nice.
Not on Crowdcube, but yeah, just with like angels and shit. And it's a fucking like, well, it feels like a full-time job in itself, because I'd never done that before. Like even just putting a pitch deck together, I mean, instinctively, like just not corporate at all. Like, I think I literally talked about like, I think I mentioned my fucking ex-girlfriend in the pitch deck or some bullshit. Like maybe not, but it was like, it was very personable. But I think like, well, I guess it came across well to certain people. But yeah, I mean, you've been doing it 8 years.
6 years for Spin. 6 years for Spin, basically.
What has been the hard? Like, how have you grown it? Because obviously, 40 employees that's a pretty fat agency.
Yeah, it's
because I always think of agencies as like you get the little, especially now that you get kind of bedroom agencies where it's basically just one bloke tending to be a
freelancer.
company.
Yeah,
and then you get obviously ones like yourself and bigger, more formal setups that might work with like bigger brands, etc., etc.
Yeah. Have we grown it? Fuck. I suppose we were always just like quite hungry. We always wanted more than we had. Greedy is probably another word for it. When you win certain clients, they give you access to other clients. It's quite funny. When we first started off, we were like, we never wanted to like be a sellout. We really wanted to be like, we were working with the challenger brands and helping the startups and small businesses. And look, that's like, we still like have a space in our heart for them, but commercially, obviously, as you grow, business size gets bigger and revenue accordingly gets bigger as well. So we've basically been climbing up the totem pole. We started with like friends and family referrals, like we ran our own ads at one point, which was quite good. We were quite heavy on like basically social growth initially. When there was a heyday, we were building our own social accounts, reaching out to lots of people, like proactively, just in DMs.
Yeah.
Then obviously winning some.
Pretty sure you sent me a DM.
Maybe, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
I definitely replied,
good.
But I don't know.
Part of the strategy. So yeah, I guess just being very proactive. Crowdcube was obviously a big part of that, and then we obviously would win a couple of big accounts and then shout about those big accounts, and then those big accounts would attract other big accounts. I think relationships is like the heart of it all. It sounds pretty cliche, but like we were really keen on like making long-term relationships with a lot of our clients. Still very good friends with a lot of our clients from the early days, and they would still refer businesses that they talk to. Especially when you get on like the Crowdcube circuit, I think you get known as being an agency affiliated. We are actually affiliated now, but we weren't officially, not after they listen to this, but and that kind of just like came sort of like one thing to the next, just went further and further. And then basically, I suppose we're a very simple business. At the end of the day, it's like people and revenue and clients, like that's kind of it. Like it's relatively black and white, and we have revenue per head, and we had what we thought was lofty goals of revenue per head that we then realized that we could stretch. And as you continue to go build the business for longer, obviously the retainers end up increasing, and then when they increase, they obviously the revenue per head increases. So now it's quite like simple business, and we just like we're quite hard on new business development and referrals and partnerships. It's a big part of my role is just speaking to people all the time, and making relationships that create referrals. And that's kind of like, it feels like honestly a blur over the last 6 years. I couldn't even like break it down. It's quite hard to think.
When I think back about life, sometimes it's like you just lay there in bed thinking like, the fuck? Yeah. Because it feels so slow sometimes, day to day. Yeah. And like even just over a month, like it's February now. Yeah. It's 2022.
I know.
I get so deep about
it. A lot has happened.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is weird, isn't it?
Right, so agency relationships and stuff, because I've worked with like seven like fucking social media paid ads agencies over the years, which is probably not a good sign, a reflection on me or them, maybe more me, because I'm just very picky or whatever. But
no comment.
Yeah, like how do you find there is a lot of churn or not? And like, and if there is or not, like how do you prevent that? Because I've got mates that have got agencies, and yeah, I mean obviously it's a very simple business, but where it differs, I guess, to like e-com is that the amount of customers you have is way less, but obviously each one pays way more. And but how do you manage that, especially when you got a team of like 40 people? Is it? I mean, I guess it's that built up over time, of course. Yeah. But how do you make sure
one of my favorite
cancels the next month?
Yeah, exactly. I suppose like obviously logistically, if we have like contracts to like mitigate risk. Yeah. More informally, I think, well, and formally, like the biggest thing is aligning expectations with reality, right? Like I always say, like the closer reality is to expectations, the happier an individual will be, regardless of whether that's personal or business. And that's kind of my job, I guess, to really align expectations. And it's much, I mean, look, paid socials is always going to have a relevant, like be be relatively turbulent,
Yeah.
because you're at the mercy of a platform a lot of the time. We obviously want to take control of as many of the variables that we have. So obviously creative is one of them that we're obviously pushing to bring in-house as much as possible, to like increase the agility overall. Being objective as possible. Like I think the subjective bit is where it's hard because, and probably harder with organic social than paid social because you have an opinion on what looks good and we have an opinion on what looks good, and the only thing really separating that is like our experience and the other clients that we have on our roster to like back up that our opinion is maybe slightly stronger than yours. But there are so many variables. It is hard. I would say like we definitely, when we started the business, had a churn issue. Like it was lots of businesses that were small businesses, very emotional, like founder-led businesses, admittedly, and quite knee-jerk. But we equally weren't nowhere near as assertive as we could have been, and we were probably quite malleable because we were like young people in business at the time. I think we've got a lot tougher at that now, and we're a lot more like assertive and authoritative over our opinion and why we believe something's good, and to be as data-driven with that as possible, because otherwise, like, what is our differentiator between like anyone else, essentially? I'm not sure if that answered the question, but
yeah, no, it does. I mean, how do you charge then typically? Because like, again, I've had people, you know, agencies where like it's all retainer, and then it's like, well, why is it all retainer if it's a performance-based thing? Yeah. And then the other way around, where it's like entirely performance, but X, Y, Z, you know, what works best, do you think? And has that changed since you got bigger?
The only thing that's really changed is how much we charge, and like we started charging £100 a month, and now we charge, you know, like upwards, you know, like several £1,000s a month. We 100% have minimum management fees to mitigate exposure and risk on our side. That essentially just equals time allocation to the account per month. Like, as much as it's nice to like package things up glamorously, we're a simple business and it's people powered, and people are as the main commodity of time. So we have minimum management fees. The best thing that really works from my experience is having like a mutual incentive, and that upside is just super aligned. We get really clear on things like attribution or what measure of success is for you, and then there's like either bonuses that are released, or there's a potential for us to basically hit an upside somewhere along the road. But we have a classic management fee structure, which is like fixed levels up to a certain media spend, and then we go into percentage of media spend, and then that's normally capped at a certain media spend, because like, you know, spending 100k and 200k, there are variables, but you know, they don't jump up twice. I think at the end of the day, when we create agreements, it's just like business. It's business is business. It needs to work for us. It needs to work for you. We try to be as commercial as possible. Occasionally, we have to have like minimums to cover our overheads, but above those minimums, let's just have like a adult conversation around like what works for you commercially, what metrics you need to hit to, you know, like be successful, quote unquote, whatever that is. And we're really keen to be like a little bit more creative and entrepreneurial when it comes to like performance-based stuff. Yeah.
And then come on to team, because that's something I've fucking struggled with hiring. And like my mate, he was on episode 23, he runs Soul with us. They're actually an investor in my new thing as well.
Nice.
He was always telling me you're so fucking shit at hiring, which is probably why I've had issues in the past trying to do so much myself. Obviously 40 people is a pretty big business, and of course it's grown to that point, but like, where did you start with hiring, and how has that changed over time, and like, I guess, how has it scaled? Is it just been like ultimately figuring it out over time, because obviously it's been quite a long time?
Yeah, I suppose like,
and then what are the biggest challenges, I guess, within that?
Yeah, I wish I had like a
question.
Silver bullet answer, but the reality is like a huge amount of it is trial and error. Yeah. I think you get very good at interviewing people when you've interviewed like thousands of people.
Those programs are shit on episode 25.
So I think you just get better. I think we've gone through like points where we probably had an issue where we were hiring very similar people to us, which aren't necessarily the best employees. Because both myself and Alex were like came from a business background and like relatively entrepreneurial, we would always look for people like that, and that would really excite us and we'd get on really well. But then they'd be very ambitious and normally leave after a bit to do their own thing.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I'm also happy about. Like, that for me is like a fulfilled purpose on the journey that we are on, is like,
Yo fellas, quick one. You may or may not have noticed there's been a bit of merch, so to speak, in recent episodes. We've got two different things. We've got some of the retro style OG Neon Beach posters that I designed like 4 years ago. You may have seen that on my Instagram. And then we've got some of the best selling OG viral style neon signs that basically did start that entire craze about 2 years ago now. So yeah, if you want to add something to your home office, your living room, just anywhere sick basically that you want to add that extra thing to and support the channel, then you can check that out. Link is in the bio, midnight.co/shop, and yeah, just an aesthetic item to complement the process, I suppose. Cheers for watching and enjoy the rest of the pod.
creating people to be better at what they were, you know, like before they came in. So I think that's a big part of it. We've like diversified our like recruitment team now. So like from interview processes, we have like qualification calls. As you can imagine, like we get inundated with like people that want to work in social media straight out of uni.
Yeah.
It's like I would say like it's just such a bulk hoover up for anyone fresh out of uni now, which is a good and bad thing. We obviously get like huge amount of quantity, and then we just need to filter through the quality. So I think we got quite good at that. We do like phone call qualifications initially with our HR manager, and then we'll do like a couple of interviews with different people in the team. I think we've overall just got a lot better at what we're looking for, and we do actually have like a report card now, so we're quite objective. We have like essentially different areas that we look for in an individual, like, you know, how like data driven they are or creative they are, and there's not a right or wrong, but it just helps us understand like where they would go in the business. And without like you know, oversimplifying like our business, it is quite simple. We have like tiers of account managers that need to have a base level of like executional knowledge, and then you have senior account managers who are more experienced, and a lot of that is just comes through. We used to hire like the attitude, train the skill a lot. I think we still like that approach, but because of the growth that we're growing, you can't like just hire the attitude, because you're going to end up with like a very like flat level of seniority. Now it's like we'll poach basically good people.
Yeah, I was going to say, where did the bulk of these people come from? Because when I was trying to get better at hiring, I just started using like LinkedIn ads. Yeah. But then I found it was like, Christ, you get 500 applications overnight for anything like social media, because it's just such a popular area.
Yeah.
So do you use like agencies, recruitment agencies, or what?
We've literally only just started using recruitment agencies. We really didn't want to use them for such a long time, because it just like makes me feel sick, like having to pay like $6,000 or whatever legit, a placement. That's a lot. And I'm like, and I know that I'd rather give that money to the employee directly, to be honest. Like, but we definitely feel like it's just like there's so much. So many people out there looking for like work in this space. We have like two approaches, I suppose. One's like the hoover up, and normally for like entry level roles, which is like junior account managers, junior designers, and a lot of that does come through LinkedIn. Like we use something called Workable now, which just splats out everywhere. You can do video qualifications, so like trying to qualify as much as possible early on as possible. And then we headhunt a bit. Like I just try to have as many conversations with people as possible. At the end of the day, this has happened like in a nice way, not a negative way, but we're speaking to marketing directors a lot of the time. There's always this big conversation about in-house or agency, like brand side or agency side.
I've thought that myself so many times.
So we're sometimes, I mean, like we've got one of our like top senior account managers did work for one of our clients ages ago. They didn't work directly for them, and then we took them on, but so there was a gap in between where they went somewhere else, and then we took them on. So that kind of stuff. I suppose just trying to think ahead, like be smart. We speak to so many people like on a day-to-day basis. I think you attract the right talent as well.
Is that like a big part of your day-to-day? Would you just say like speaking to people, like whether it's current team or like new hires, or is it a bit? I guess it's a big blend. Obviously, like sales and everything as well, but
yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got quite good at like splitting things out and like roles now into departments. Like my business partner's like more like process, people focus. So he does lots of like the systems and processes internally, and then we've got performance director, we've got creative director, we've got HR, we've got sales, we've got those periphery sort of like team members. And I personally do, yes, speak to a lot of people. I will have like strategic conversations with people I feel like could be a good fit, not now, but in like maybe the next year or so. I'll take people for like a coffee or go for a coffee just to like, catch up, because there's two like approaches. There's obviously they probably work somewhere, like us being on their radar is obviously going to be a good thing for business development. And then also like just to create the relationship is nice. I'm very conscious of like my time and the value of it and how I don't have a huge amount of it. So I try to like qualify out a lot of people I speak to first. Sometimes there'll be like internal stuff. We have like pods basically. So like a lot of our time is spent like liaising with the pod leaders, and therefore the managers. But for me specifically, I'm like more out facing on the business, and I'm speaking to basically like, prospective businesses, and people in the space that could be interesting to collaborate. Yeah,
because one thing, I don't know if you've ever found this, but obviously I'm a bit younger than you, but I've never got close to fucking 40 actual employees. I had like a team in the Philippines at one point, but it was very scrappy. It was like agency here, there and everywhere. And then I had like 3 PAYE proper employees at one point, and then
nice.
That didn't end very well in hindsight. But my problem was always, I just got major imposter syndrome. Like trying to hire anyone, particularly people that were older than me, because 2 of them were older than me. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had that, and if so, like, because it's something I need to get over, because I'm trying to build a big business, and like I'm very conscious of the fact that I find myself definitely just like stuck working like in the business a lot of the time, rather than fucking on it, and like trying to like remove myself and create like more of a leveraged approach. But hiring's a part of that.
It's interesting. I would say like my probably like an advantage that I got was when I had the cycle business. I inherited a team of like 5 or 6 people. They were like 57, 30, 35, 60, like 17, 18, and then like 24, and I was 19, so it was like this real like mix of people. I think that was the hardest thing I actually probably take for granted, but like going through that process of trying to manage those people and get an output out of them without being like it overly hierarchical, and me just sitting on my high horse asking them to do stuff. So I basically created a very flat structure. It was proper teamwork, and I was quite transparent around like revenue and like we're all in it together and we'll all learn, collectively. So I suppose I was quite like, I didn't really have anything to hide because they knew my position. So I got over that imposter syndrome a little bit. I was like quite vulnerable and like, this is the situation, let's make the best out of a tough situation. And then hiring within Spin, I definitely had imposter syndrome at the beginning, especially when we were hiring people who had like on paper been doing marketing for a lot longer than me, or had gone to university even and done a marketing degree. And I was like literally very far from that. But I guess you just like, I've always like really been very self-critical and like really tried to work on being open with weaknesses and strengths. And I've always known that maybe it's a slightly like egotistical thing where like I've just always felt like they may be smarter than me, but they'll never outwork me. And this is a quote that I remember like listening to ages ago. It's probably on like a Gary Vee podcast when I was 17 or something. But that was like a big quote that got me through or motivated me a lot when a lot of my friends went to university and I came back and like worked. So I think that was a good way of getting past it. I was like, they can be on paper smarter than me, they'll be better than me than this, but I will work 23 hours a day if it kills me,
And with the team now, obviously having gone through COVID, was that like, how was that? I mean, obviously everyone was working from home. Did you keep the office?
We were really fortunate. So we so we had an office in Putney at the time, and we'd just handed our notice in. We were going to move to Waterloo anyway. And we were weirdly about to sign on this office, literally like February, I think it was. So like just before like things started falling apart. And they had some issues like internally. So we were always going to have to remote work for like 2 weeks. And we had told the team, we were like, oh, there's a bit of a hold up on the office. Don't worry, bear with us. So we had left our we were basically hand our notice in, weren't paying rent or rates, and we were remote working, and then this office like actually fell through. And also then the pandemic obviously hit, and everyone was forced to work remotely anyway, so it was like a huge blessing in disguise. Like we basically had like a decent stint, I can't remember how long it was, complete like 6, 7, 8 months maybe, where we weren't paying rent or rates, which is like a third of our overheads. So yeah, that was it really. And then we ended up like moving around. We had a client at the time who had just signed a 10-year lease in Oxford Circus, like 10k
I can't
a
think
month.
that long ahead.
I know. And they were like a luxury events agency, and were like a bit, just bad timing with the pandemic, obviously no events. And then we ended up moving in their office for a bit, because we've got like a very young team. Everyone's between like 20 and 35 tops. Even 18 to 35, sorry. And we knew that the office was always going to be an important part of that process, because like, when you're like 20 and you're like in a house share with shit internet with 4 other people, it's just not like an enjoyable work environment, let alone a productive one. And a big part of agency creativity comes from the energy and like being together in the room. So I'm quite like bullish on like the office, and I knew we were always going to have one. And we ended up just sort of like moving around. We had a co-work space for a bit, like while we were like mitigating exposure, just trying to get the lay of the land. And then we signed where we are currently on a basically signed for the year, and then we basically offered them 50% of asking price, and they accepted it, and we were like, winner. Should have gone lower. Fuck.
Yeah, because the whole office thing I was mentioning before, like I've had an office in the past. It was literally me and like one mate, very premature at the time. And then obviously there's like great benefit of not having an office, I guess, flexible, whatever. But especially now, like ultimately post-pandemic world, I fucking hope. Now I'm like so sick of working from home. And I think a co-work or something in a co-work is probably like the sensible middle ground. But as I've definitely started to like appreciate the just fucking being around people a lot more. I don't know, but like as I've got older, I suppose, I think I used to think like kind of, like I don't have to go to an office, don't have to commute, all this. I think it is interesting you say that, because literally I've just started getting cabin fever in like the past month.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it's like been accelerated over the last 2 years of the pandemic, right? I definitely had times where I was like, loved working from home. I was like, fuck, I'm so productive. I'm working 10 hours a day, forgetting to eat lunch, and I'm getting a lot done. And it may be like going for like a run or whatever, either side. And I felt quite healthy, and like cooking dinner, was like a revelation for me, because I would always just eat out because I just ran out of time. And I like genuinely love the office so much. I say the issue is like finding that balance between productivity and having your own space. And for me specifically, I get quite distracted, but I like tapping into it. And right now is the perfect balance where I'm in like 3 or 4 days a week, and I've got maybe one day to catch up on admin at home, or loads of calls, or I'm in the office. And fortunately I've got a private office within our office where I can like just be on calls all day, which is like my own, essentially a glorified phone booth. But that's the only issue with co-working spaces, when there's just a lot of people, and we've struggled a little bit. We've always gone private office because we're on calls a lot of time, to be honest, and it's quite hard to like find space that isn't a claustrophobic phone booth.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. And how do you think going forward, is it going to be full office, or, because I know outside the working world's kind of changed, everyone's saying, and like a lot of people I speak to that, like including my brother, who's got like a, I guess, more normal job and stuff. It's like flexible working, all this, because there's obviously pros and cons. People seem to want to be able to choose when they're feeling lazy, stay at home. Yeah, exactly. The classic Monday, Friday thing. I think there's a good balance. I think flexi is the future, basically. Like, we'll always aim for a private office for as long as possible, as long as we can afford it, like things are changing. But I think most people come in, I would say like we have a 50% rolling capacity in our office each day. So it's not 100% at all. But most people come in like 3 or 4 times a week. And I think that's perfect blend. I think it's the future. I agree. I think I need to get out of the flat like 3 days a week. Just start to go fucking mad.
It might be different as well for you because like you're in control of your, you know, it's not like you're an employee and you're commuting to a job that you don't necessarily like and you have to commute at 9 in the morning with every other salmon swimming up river.
Yeah, very true. I mean, I definitely started to think now. I'm always torn because I've got mates that have like genuinely really big businesses. Like one in particular I can think of, he was on the pod in like episode 7 and he literally works from home and doesn't believe in like the office. Like I don't think he has a single like UK based employee. But then obviously you get like other businesses where, you know, they have a team of 100 people, a great office culture, all this. I'm almost torn between what I feel like I'd rather have like the big office and like the whole setup. Because then it's I don't know, it's as much about the kind of lifestyle and the experience of it,
and
the enjoyment of it, I think, as it is about like, is it, you know, cost efficient, etc., etc.
I think there's two things for me. Like, the office creates a huge amount of energy for us. Like, I walk in and I'm pumped every day. Like, it's you know, it's a tangible thing. It's not like looking at a spreadsheet and seeing how much money you're earning. It's like you walk into an office with a bunch of people who are, you know, like buzzing around, doing lots of things, having conversations. That's so exciting. I would say like building a good culture is very hard, and I feel like we've done a good job. And it's like a number one priority for us to continue that. But I think we've probably got a competitive advantage because we're all a similar sort of age and therefore relatively like-minded. I think when it starts going quite broad, it might get a bit more confusing.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah.
On the creative side of things then, because that's something I've struggled with in the past. I feel like obviously you get SMMA that generally, or agencies that generally offer like paid ads. Yeah. You mentioned creative is a big part now.
Yeah.
When did that come in and how does that work? Because like, I feel like media buying, and I've spent loads of money on Facebook ads and Google ads and et cetera in the past, but like creative feels like it's a bigger variable than ever, especially since like iOS 14, all this.
Yeah.
And most people just skimp on it, it feels.
Yeah, 100%. I would say like...
And there's a lot of agencies that are doing just creative. I've seen like creative specific ones.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, basically as like Facebook, and when I talk about Facebook, I basically mean like all social media advertising platforms, like across TikTok and everything. As they've become more competitive, like they've got such a low barrier to entry, and are always like much more black box orientated, where the levers that you have to control are actually limited to a certain extent. Creative is one of those massive levers that you have freedom over. So we always saw it as an opportunity. We always had designers from early on, but not really like ads designers. And then iOS kicked in and we lost probably like 20% of our ad revenue like in 2 weeks or like 2 months probably. It was like a very like sort of an epitome moment where we were like, fuck, we really need to like refresh and change things up here. Obviously creative was that glaring thing, like looking at us in the face. And we saw there was loads of creative agencies that do like creative very well, and there's lots of very data driven agencies that do like, you know, analytics and data very well. And then we felt like there was this increasingly bigger opportunity in like merging them together and having like data under one roof so we can and like have maximum agility with creative and what's working and what isn't. And then like not just creating like digital assets, then we hired like this TikTok influencer last year who is like physically unboxing, talking to the camera 1 hour, the ads are live the next hour, we're getting like data fed in like the hour after that, you know. It's just such a fast feedback loop, which obviously gives us a competitive advantage to like outperform other people.
Yeah. And are you making that shit in-house?
Yeah.
Everything?
Unfortunately.
No, that's good because like I'm trying to find, maybe you can do my creative stuff for this new brand, because literally I'm trying to plan. I'm at that annoying stage where right now everything's ready to go. Well, I mean, product's on the way, and it's just like until I have product like finished, I can't really do much because, you know, like I've just got like mock-ups on the website. The website's not even live, but the website's ready to go, and there's so much creative stuff I want to do, like using apps like Billo. Have you seen Billo? When it's like UGC and all that shit. But until I have a product, it's just frustrating. So I'm twiddling my thumbs at the minute, but the second I have product, I think, it's such a massive thing. I think I've slept on it in the past.
Yeah,
it's easier for certain products, but
exactly, and like definitely products is the hard part. Is the easy part of a hard situation, right? Like the more complicated that product is, I think we found, because we've got a young team, if we've got a product that maybe is more suitable for like an older demographic, that puts us in a bit of like, we're like, well, do we still do this, or do we get like a model in to do it? And then there are definitely complications, but nothing that we can't deal with, you know. And as we grow and as the demand increases, we'll just adapt accordingly, I think.
Yeah. And where do you see the agency going over, like, have you got a plan for it? Because obviously you probably have got a plan, but like, is there a specific level you're trying to get it to in terms of revenue? You're looking for an exit? Like, because I've spoken to people and some people say like agency's not an exitable model, and then you read about cases where actually that's not the case at all, and it is. Or you're just enjoying growing things and
definitely a mixture. Life. Like, I think we've gone through like this slightly like bipolar period where, you know, you really like are fed up sometimes, and then other times you're absolutely loving it. Like, you get the biggest buzz from it in the world. We've had conversations around like acquisitions or mergers with other agencies. Sometimes we got approached actually in the year of the pandemic quite a lot, because we're an independent specialist agency. We're very bolt-onable to a larger agency, especially like a PR agency, which is maybe like, fuck, we're a bit behind the times and social's taking over, or an old school marketing agency that's trying to digitalize. We had some interesting conversations. I think we're curious people. I don't think it's high up on our radar at all at the moment. I think it has been higher and it's also been lower. Look, I'm always open to the conversation. I think we have a valuation in mind at the moment, which feels about right. It's like hungry enough, but not like, or, you know, completely ridiculous. But at the same time, like, I think we always know it's there, and as long as we stay at the front of our industry, i.e. an independent specialist agency, and constantly innovate and do a good job, we're not only having a load of fun, we're also making a chunk of cash doing it. Not you know, like, and we reinvest a lot of that into like building the business, but it's almost like a dividend heavy business as well. Like, sometimes I think one of the offers that we looked at, we were like, that's a good, you know, it feels quite good, but actually, like, I'm still young. I've got the rest of my life ahead of me. I don't really have this burning sensation to go off and do anything else. Yeah. And actually, if we 5 years time get an MD in and become chairman, you know, like, and take money out of the business that way, then, you know, that's actually not a bad life either. So I think it's always interesting to look at options. Who knows? It needs to be exciting. Both of us, both myself and Alex, are like super entrepreneurial, and we need something to like fuel our fire. Right now, spin is enough of that, and there's a lot going on, and we're in a very hot space, which is very exciting. I think the moment it becomes a little less exciting is obviously something, but that could also be self-inflicted a lot of the time. We've gone through those spikes, and we're definitely loving it at the moment. So yeah, kind of like vague answers to that. Like, who knows? Future's bright.
Do you think having like bricks and mortar and it looking more real, like literally, gives it, you know, higher perceived value for a potential buyer, as opposed to like obviously agencies that, I don't know, could potentially be doing as big numbers? And that's because in episode 22, which hasn't gone out yet, but it will have gone out by the time this comes out, this guy called Alex speaking about like the strategic narrative of like businesses and shit, and I just I love the term, and I was so interested by it. It's like positioning the brand and business beyond just like the actual numbers to make it appeal to whoever in whatever capacity. I think it's a very good point. It completely depends on the buyer, right? It depends if they're a fully remote workforce, they probably don't care, or they probably see it as an opportunity to cut costs immediately and add more to your bottom line. So, and in the back of my mind, I'm always like that with rent and like overheads. I'm like, it's always there. You know, we could go remote tomorrow if we wanted to and make an extra X amount a month on a bottom line. So it's like a nice safety blanket to always, like, you know, we've got a long way to go before we could, you know, get into a tricky waters. I think, there probably is perceived value, especially if like the business is more of a traditional business and like culture is really important to them. I think it's much easier to create a good culture in an office where there's a physical environment where you're speaking to people. I don't know, like there's obviously that skew between like
extroverted and introverted people and where they work best, and we've obviously got a mix in our team, and probably, you know, the slightly more extroverted people come into the office more, but I think it's a fairly good balance.
Yeah, and you said at the start that you are driven by money, like, or you were at least. I mean, I won't put words in your mouth, but like, I guess firstly, like, are you, and secondly, how has that changed from being 19 to 29? Because I know my perspective on money's changed a lot.
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily go away, but the angle perhaps changes, and the reasons.
I think it's really interesting, and it's a subject that
trying to get philosophical now.
Yeah, no,
enough about agencies.
Yeah, boring. I think it's really interesting, and I think a lot of it comes from like the whole nature nurture scenario for me personally. My mum was an illustrator, my dad was a photographer, they both worked for the Science Museum, they met at the Science Museum.
That is old school romance.
Exactly.
That's how I want to meet my future wife.
Start hanging out at the Science Museum, mate. Yeah. And they lived in Worcester Park. Like, neither of them came. I think my mum came from like parents were farmers. My dad's parents were like in car sales. He was like a car salesman or something. So like not like anything crazy, but like humble beginnings, and like, but not like also like I'm very conscious that when I say this, I'm like white male, grew up in Surrey, extremely like privileged.
Gonna get cancelled.
Yeah, exactly. Waiting for the. But essentially, they like really over leveraged themselves to move out of the city and into like a nice area. And when I was young, so like the whole time, the environment at home was like money conflict constantly.
Yeah.
And like my dad had a big nervous breakdown when he was 40 or 50 or so. Like had to take time off work for a long time. At the time, he was the only. He was like the main breadwinner, and I was probably a little bit naive at that point. I was out of the house a lot, you know. I was just like a youngster, just like keeping busy at the skate park or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that definitely had an impact on me and like what that and the stress that it brought to our household. And I think I was just always very conscious of like getting to a level of financial freedom, and I think that has loads of stages, right? So I think. Growing up in that environment like made me just extremely conscious of money and not having money. You know, like often I wouldn't be able to go on school trips because it didn't work or for my parents, and like I knew that like to get the things that I wanted, I would have had to like get it myself, and I think that was actually probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It's given me the work ethic I have now and the motivation to create something, go out and get it yourself rather than sitting back. And then I started earning money, and like I was probably at that, I was like 21 or so, where my income was like the same as my dad's, and I was like, that's not right, like that feels very weird, and that I think affected like the family dynamic slightly. I was very conscious of like making sure that obviously everyone was in a comfortable situation. My dad still has 2 jobs, you know, he's like 65, he like definitely over leveraged on a mortgage. And he's like constantly stressed about money, and from that I've also had like grown up in an environment where like we've always had, well, my family have always been relatively bitter about people that seems well off or affluent, right? And I saw that quite interestingly, and have probably gone the complete other way and been really inspired by people that had like a level of affluence. And I'm also very conscious and maybe more self-aware, or just willing to be curious in this space, that like, you know, it's not as glamorous as it seems from the outside in. And I've learned more about that as more conversations I've had. You know, I've been fortunate enough to have conversations with billionaires and like learn a lot about their lives and everything in between, you know. So I think that's less of an issue for me now. I think it's nice when I've got to a point where like I feel comfortable, but not. I think it's finding that balance where you should always be pushing yourself to feel a little bit uncomfortable, but also knowing that actually you've got it very well compared to a lot of your peers, and just a lot of, you know, statistically. So from a broader perspective. But yeah, I don't know if that sort of kind of made sense, kind of not.
Yeah, no, well, because I always think about the question, like, if someone gave you £1 billion tomorrow, what would you actually do?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people probably assume the whole world would change, and maybe it would for a month, but then like fundamentally, it's quite a scary question, because a lot of people, I mean myself included, and I certainly haven't made anywhere near those levels, of course, but I probably thought when I was younger, chasing money would, like, I don't know, solve, this is like probably something I should speak to you about my non-existent but pending therapist. I probably thought that chasing money and like ticking certain materialistic goals off would, like, I don't know, quieten the fucking voice in the back of my head. Yeah. And then it doesn't, and then it's like, oh fuck, maybe, and obviously there's levels to it, of course, like I would love to make 100 million quid or whatever, and I think I can if I put my mind to it. But I'm probably more aware of the fact that I think even when that happens, I don't know, it might not scratch the itch that you think it's going to do. Because you hear about it all the time, like people, I don't know, like they sell a business. Maybe it's a bit like just trying to come up with a story, and obviously it's not that relatable for most people, but like, including myself, but you know, they sell a business and they feel empty or whatever. Yeah. So I often just think like, well, if I did have £1 billion tomorrow, work on what I should probably work on now, what I'd work on if that was a real situation. I think I remember, by definition, you're probably doing something you enjoy more.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
Better at, maybe.
It's purpose, isn't it? Like, that's the main thing that we thrive for. And I think there's a couple of things. There's like, for me personally, I don't know what it is, and maybe this comes from what I just mentioned, but like always making my parents proud, you know, like really like creating something that I'm proud of, but also, you know, they're happy and they're proud of me too, I think is a big driver, motivation for me. I think getting to a sustainable like financial freedom level is really key, and explosive is nice, but I think it comes with its own stresses, as you know, like too well. Like,
fucking tell me about it.
I've got like a very humble uncle who now is like, he's like CEO of £1 billion business, has like thousands of employees, and he's just lives in like such a normal life, and I love that. I think there's something where you go through the external validation, like when you grow up, and especially when you're young, and maybe imposter syndrome is a big part of that. I definitely had like flashy cars when I was younger, and I think a big part of it was to like show success like externally, because I didn't really feel like I was there.
Get approval.
And I actually think I genuinely feel so much more like comfortable in myself, and maybe that has come from like, you know, the hours of therapy that I've had, or now having a very like humble girlfriend who would probably hate the idea of me having a flashy car. You know, I think that really helps like ground you. But that's just the process, I think. And some people go through it in different paths, and some people don't, you know.
How long have you been with your girlfriend? I'm not trying to bring this onto my ex again. It was way too past that now. Yeah, a couple of years. Well, coming up to 2 years. Oh, so not that long.
No, pandemic.
Yeah, because I've had a few guests on. I think it was episode 24, getting good with the numbers, and he'd been with his girlfriend like 7 years, and he was 24. I was like, fucking hell, okay.
That's mental.
I'm doing something wrong, or I'm living in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But do you think if you were single, you'd care more about like flexing and shit? I've debated. I mean, you don't strike me as someone that would do that now anyway. I mean, you said in the past maybe, but do you know what I mean? Because I was looking back at pictures from like a year ago, and I was like, fuck, I look fat in that. And like, obviously it's not about flexing, but like the point is that I don't know, maybe I was so comfortable with my girlfriend that I just stopped like going to the gym as much. Yeah. Like stupid shit like that.
I think that's definitely a driver. Like, I would say like objectively, the single period of my life, I was a bit of a twat, or I was like at least craving that like external
dyed my hair blonde again,
validation.
So again.
It's like, it is what it is. It's like, I think, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And at the time you just feel like, I think there's an element of emptiness that comes from probably not having a piece of the puzzle that you feel is really important. And actually the moment I actually really remember it was like literally the year before the pandemic, where I just decided to stop dating. And I was going through the stage of like basically dating almost for the sake of it. And like, I don't know what it was, but I was definitely like trying to fill a void that was in my life.
Yeah, I've been there.
And I just reflected on like, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to like stopped dating. And this is really cringe again, but it was like, I think I read it in a book.
Nothing's
or something.
cringe on this pod, trust me. I've said everything.
Good.
Way worse.
It was like, if you can't love yourself, then no one else will love you. And I was like, I really need to work on myself because I really am craving that from someone else.
Fuck yeah. That's
So
so
there.
true. I was in a float tank the other week.
Nice, good. Loving yourself.
Yeah, honestly, I've only done like 3 of them, but it was like borderline psychedelic experience. And I swear to, like, I remember coming out of it and putting in the group chat, my one conclusion was I need to love myself more. It's
Nice.
kind of deep. I don't know where the fuck it came from. Because there was no stimulus, obviously sensory deprivation. But yeah, I don't know. I swear I could like feel myself like floating through like heaven or some shit.
I love that. I need to do a float tank. I've never done it.
I actually found it really hard the second time.
Is it a bit claustrophobic?
I
Freaks
just
me
wasn't
out
in a
a bit.
good headspace the second time I did it, and then it's challenging to sit with your thoughts for an hour. And
Is there like an emergency button to get out?
I mean, it's like you can open it.
Oh, okay,
it's
cool.
like it is pretty claustrophobic. But well, I mean, it's not, because the whole point is that when you shut your eyes and like you basically forget you have a body. So you're like
that's
a
insane.
floating head. But I'm trying to make a conscious effort to, I guess, meditate and understand my thoughts more. But yeah, we're going off topic. But
I think that's a really interesting point, and like
it's become like a priority for me because literally, I think, well, just like being fully transparent, I had like a bit of a fucking mental breakdown last week. I don't know what it was. Well, I kind of know what it was. There was a few triggers, and then it ended up in hospital actually because it was pretty fucked. Ruining my personal brand here, but I literally, it was definitely an element of anxiety for like a week because I went out and fucking had a massive bender, which did not help. But I literally cried every day for like a week, not like constantly, but I'm not a crier. I mean, I'm an emotional person, but you know, I wouldn't cry on like any given week. Like it takes a lot to make me cry normally. I don't know what it was, and it was like I hadn't. That's why I need a therapist. But it was like I hadn't fucking acknowledged the, I don't know, like past traumas or whatever, like stresses of the past year.
Yeah.
My relationship breaking down.
Definitely compounds.
There was a trigger about that as well. And yeah, it was weird. I literally felt like a different person. But I think that's not normal for me. But maybe with meditation and yeah, just like investing in, rather than just trying to look better or you know, have a bigger number on a screen or whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I've had a bit of like a spiritual awakening in like the past year, and it's like fuck, like yeah, kind of what you said, like you have to work on yourself and love yourself first, because I think a lot of people probably just lie to themselves, and like if you put them in a room without any coffee, alcohol, social media for like a week, could they survive? I mean, I probably couldn't, to be fair, but like yeah, it's kind of quite profound, because I think most people think they may be content or happy or fulfilled, but actually if you tell them they can't drink wine for the next year, are they actually fulfilled? I don't know, it's quite
that's deep.
Existential.
I think it's really interesting. I think
thing.
I lucked out, to be honest, because my current girlfriend is a yoga teacher, right? And
I need to start going to yoga classes.
Yoga's the best thing, and also through that, like we meditate every morning. Like I think it's the best way to start the day. My life was like I wasn't like completely outrageous, but like it wasn't sustainable. It was like, you know, like working long hours, starting the day with like a cinnamon bun and a coffee. It's just like sugar and caffeine into it, and then like obviously working, eating out, you know, like going out, sleeping less. And I genuinely feel like the pandemic saved me in a way, because it really just forced me to slow the fuck down. And then obviously in sync with that, I met my now girlfriend, who's like the most zen person ever. And you know, you really get that energy.
I need a zen girl going forward.
I mean,
do you mean at a yoga? Was it not any yoga place?
There's no yoga, but it was really weird actually. I'll tell you, just because it's so random. But have you heard of something called Nextdoor?
No, I haven't actually.
It's basically like this website where you can like moan about your neighbours, or like, you know, cat stuck up a tree.
Really? That's funny.
It's like small business like place, and you can like talk about stuff. Anyway, like a couple of weeks before pandemic, it was getting a bit weird. So I was like, people are talking about like riots in London, and I was like, this is weird. Someone said like, oh, you should look at Nextdoor, because that's like where all the chat is basically. So I downloaded it, And then I came up and it like geo tagged me where I lived, and I could see like everyone that had next door on my road. And I lived at the time on a road that was like a bit of a retirement road, you know. And I thought I did a really nice thing and message like the 4 people that came up as having next door accounts on my road via it, and be like, basically, we probably haven't met. I live here. If you need anything, just shout.
Wait, so does it show you anyone that's on the app that lives near you?
Yeah, I think I must have like verified
so is that
it
like
somehow.
An underground dating app then?
Well, it's not exactly.
Around here, it's always bloody flats.
I think you're struggling in a flat because it's like 1 million people could live in this building. But yeah, definitely. And also they might not have next door. It's quite a rogue thing to have. But anyway, I messaged loads of people and be like, do you need anything? If you need anything, just shout. And then a couple of nice elderly people were like, that's great, really great, but I'm all good. And then one person replied, who's my now girlfriend, and she was like, hey, I don't live here. That was really kind of you. It was good to chat. I'm probably butchering this and she'll like rinse me for it. But basically like, I don't live here anymore. My parents live here. I live the other side of like Putney. But if you want to come to a Zoom yoga class, hit me up. And I was like, that sounds good. I probably need a bit of Zoom yoga. I'd like recently done like a hot yoga and like kind of got into it, but still like very amateur, and went along and like just, you know, there was that energy, and we met on Zoom for the first time, and then we went for a walk and like caught up, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, that's cool. That's like classic, because I always say to my mates, like, I don't know, I don't want to have to tell my future kids that you I don't know, you met your wife on Hinge.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something like that. But it's interesting because some people like have a real dislike to dating apps, and they're like, oh, it's not real, blah, 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 you should meet a girl in a bar. But then like, arguably, if you meet a girl in a bar, A, you're intoxicated, B, like there's no filter at all. Whereas on Hinge, like you need to set preferences, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, should it be seen as just the modern equivalent of meeting someone in the street, but with actually more criteria, so it could arguably be more organic? Or is it like, do you know what I mean? Like, or is it like horrible social media swiping, whatever? Because I see both sides, and it's an interesting debate. I think people probably just want, and I definitely want, the romantic tale of, I met my wife, hypothetical wife, in fucking art gallery. Yeah. She dropped her hat, I picked it up. Yeah. Some bullshit like that. But I'm just a hopeless romantic.
No, so am I. And maybe it is a personality type, right? Some people are more romantic than others.
Yeah.
And I genuinely felt like I was going on these like dating apps previously, and I was sort of like, not, before I'd even turned up, I wasn't really that like up for it. I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is so ridiculous.
I've been there in the past for sure.
But then equally, I know people that have got married to their now wives who they met on dating apps, and they're the happiest couple ever. Yeah. So I think it really depends on like your personality. I definitely felt like, even, you know, you're never going to find someone you like if you're going into the situation on back foot, not really wanting to find them through a dating app, which you have now met them through. So
yeah. Yeah, fuck. Very, very true.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
It always comes down to relationships, by the way, in this pod.
Yeah,
it just,
that's fun. I like
to
it.
speak about like weird fucking shit. Coming back to the agency then. Well, I'll try and come back to the agency. What has been, well, I guess like broadly kind of mixing like the philosophical side with business. What do you reckon's been the biggest personal challenge since you were like 19? Like, just, I guess, relevant to business, but ultimately life. Yeah. In building something. Because, I mean, for me, it's probably been loneliness in the process. Yeah. Like, I'll start. It's like a therapy class.
Yeah, loneliness for you. Good. I think, like, as this word obviously words get thrown around loads, but like imposter syndrome has been a big part of it because of just my upbringing, I think, and the fact that I didn't go to university, and I ended up with this very like weird, scattered, like untraditional like process. I've always felt like, even like hiring people that, you know, like are quote unquote like smarter than me on paper, I find that quite intimidating. But equally, I would say like a bit of a strength and a weakness is that I remember like I have these like weird affirmations maybe where I like tell myself, I like encourage myself to do something and I hate doing it, but I know that it's the right thing to do. And I remember like driving to the office back in the early days and saying to I had a really stressful meeting like the day before, and I was like sweating and like just, you know, like it was probably like really casual for my business partner at the time because he was like, you know, just used to it, and I was really nervous. And then I remember like the next day waking up feeling a lot more chilled about going to the next meeting. I was like, oh, it was nowhere near as intimidating as one yesterday. And I was like, there's a real like compounded thing when you put yourself out of your comfort zone. And it only takes that 5 minutes to like be outside of your comfort zone. And once you're like, get going, it kind of calms down. But pushing that like aggressively and trying to almost make myself feel sick with nerves as much as possible for like the last 6 years has been like the main thing that's motivated me, as well as being like probably a weakness in a way.
Yeah.
I actually think comparing myself to other people and their intelligence, so like academic intelligence, has always been like a big weakness for me. I'm learning to shake that definitely. And as things like business become more, there's more tangible success and outcome, I feel like the bike business initially, it felt like it was probably a bit of a fluke, and I didn't really wasn't that proud of myself for the process. I just felt like I was in the right time, right place, lucky opportunity, managed to like get away with it by like the seat of my pants. And now I feel like the second time now, and there's a bunch of businesses in between.
Can't be a fluke sort of thing.
So I don't know. Again, probably a vague answer, but
you keep saying that, but no, it's good. The answer is the answer. There's no agenda. Do you think you could do it without a business partner? Because just in general, like I've never had a business partner, and I don't know, maybe I'd be a lot less stressed or whatever if I did. But I guess it was never intentional. It was just I'd never come across the person that made sense to do that with. And maybe I'd be a terrible fucking co-founder or whatever, but...
Yeah. I think, obviously, I mean, before we went into business together, we had like loads of conversations with people saying, don't do it, basically.
Yeah.
It's always going to end up in a mess. And I genuinely, hand on heart, think it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like meeting Alex, the timing was obviously great. I think our compatibility is really good. We've definitely got like different strengths and weaknesses. And maybe he's a little bit older and like... you know, like he had the specific experience. So I always felt like, weirdly, he was more of a mentor and I was his right-hand man, like from day one. And I think that really helped the dynamic. I think when you're too even, or you're too like, maybe there is an ego in the way of that. I think that really causes difficulty. I genuinely think, yes, I could do it on my own. It would probably be twice as boring, half as quick, half as, you know, like, or twice as stressful. I think you genuinely like share all of the you share the best things, and you also half the bad things. So even from like a financial risk perspective, like when not that we put in any money to start the business, but it was like £100 each rather than £200 from me, you know, like those things obviously increase massively as you grow the business. But yeah, I think overall, definitely it was the right thing for me. It might not be for you, but it also might be.
Yeah, jeez. I mean, yeah, if I find that person, I guess this time around with this next business, I've got investors involved, which in my mind is like co-founder, because a few of them are quite involved, and it definitely, and a lot more experience than me, which is good, because trying to learn from my mistakes of just fucking being very childish at scale in the past, I guess. All right, final question. Well, I feel like there's so many things I always find it takes about an hour until shit gets philosophical. I know. And then when it gets philosophical, that's when I wish I got the red wine out and I could just fucking go for like 5 hours, but I'm trying not to drink at the minute because there's been a lot of emotional distress in my life. If you could give... I've started using this stereotypical question every episode now. If you could give 3 bits of advice to your 19-year-old self, and I want good answers, don't fucking cop out.
Jesus.
What would they be on reflection? I don't know if you've ever thought about that, because someone asked me that the other day and I'd never thought about it.
I don't think I've ever thought about it. What would I give myself?
on the spot here.
Yeah, it's hard.
Surely it's instinctive.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Weirdly, I feel like I want it to be good. There's obviously loads, isn't there? I would say, I mean, like the first one is obviously try not to be conscious of, you know, like what other people think of you. I think I was always very self-conscious as a kid and growing up, and definitely looked for other people. So just like focus on, you know, stick in your own lane, do you, like really work on yourself, like have fun. I think it was quite interesting. I had some advice. I will come on to it. I had some advice some like unwarranted advice from a customer of mine when I had the cycle business, which was like, you're too friendly, too smiley, no one will ever trust you. And I really took that on board, and it really bothered me. And I would actually ignore that advice completely and just be like, be kind. Kindness, kill them with kindness, like always.
That feels relevant to me. Based on a recent text exchange.
Awkward.
Yeah, for us.
What's the third bit? Go big or go home. You know, like I think I've always been quite nervous and like not that brave to do things, and it might sound weird from what I've said, but I've always feared failure a lot higher than probably what it looks like from the outside in, and there's not really a lot that can go well. You know, there's lots that can go wrong, but there's very few things that will result in like, you know, me dying, you know, or like whatever, you know, that real like bottom line. So yeah, those are three, but very off the hat, and probably could improve on next time.
No, that's good. That's good. No, that was enjoyable. That's already an hour and a half.
Amazing.
I could probably go for fucking 2.5 hours if we had red wine, but yeah, really interesting. I think maybe bringing up the fucking relationship stuff and going down to like psychology and shit. I always just end up going down that route, and people give me stick on it in a way, sometimes in comments and stuff. But I just feel like it's a huge part of any business
life.
And yeah, because ultimately as an entrepreneur, I feel like obviously businesses kind of blends with life, and they both play into each other. And yeah, I guess I've just been reflecting a lot on like the holistic approach to life rather than just fucking staring at a screen. And yeah, I don't know. I think I need to find myself a yogi wife that's like can teach me to control my manic mind.
Yeah.
So I like pondering different ideas surrounding it. It's cool.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, it's definitely saved me. I think like it's helped me like balance a bit on the work hard, stay humble approach as well. Like, and just enjoy life for what it is, and like practice gratitude, like practice being vulnerable. You know, it's like the hardest thing in the world, but actually it's probably like the biggest strength. And I think that's something that I've always, quite recently, like been inspired by you from, is just like,
thanks.
You know, really delivering it how it is. And I don't think it very rarely gets done like that, especially for quote unquote like successful people. And I think that's the ultimate strength, but obviously not an easy thing, and it takes a lot of self-awareness and probably a bunch of therapy, but yeah, that's the goal.
If anyone can recommend a good therapist, by the way, put it in the comments or some shit, or DM me, because I definitely need to get one. I'm just doing like the classic male thing of I've got feelings I need to deal with, but stubborn, like just like putting it off. Like I'll do it after I've fucking done this bit of work, and it's probably like the most important thing.
It's the best money I've ever spent, genuinely. Every 3 weeks.
Everyone has said that to me.
Bam. So good.
Is it in person? Do you do it?
I actually do it on Zoom.
I feel like I'd rather do it in person. That sort of shit.
No, you can. Yeah,
I've had it in the past, but never consistently, and it's just like, yeah, like podcasts, doing a podcast and speaking to mates and shit is therapy to an extent, but I don't know, like, yeah, I could maybe having that formal outlet from someone who is trained to fucking figure shit out.
It just helps you process your thoughts so much, and yeah, I think genuinely best money I've ever spent. I would encourage anyone to do it, obviously, without forcing it. But.
Yeah, interesting. Right, that said, cheers for watching the episode. If you're enjoying the pod, subscribe, like, share it to a friend, all that good shit. It's been a lot of love on the pod, to be fair. I think I had like 250 DMs last week or some bullshit, which is actually mad because we only have 3,000 something subscribers. But yeah, going deep rather than wide, I suppose, to start with is the plan. And yeah, I said 52 episodes in a year. This is episode 25, so we're like halfway there pretty much. And I'm enjoying it. So cheers for watching. See you in the next episode. Peace.